Hi, I'm Kelly with citruscycles.ca. I'm here with the Royal Dutch Gazelle Easyflow. It's a Dutch style electric bike. And in this video review, I'm going to talk about what a Dutch bike actually is. I'll take you through the features of the bike, and I'll take you on a ride test. For the detailed specs for current pricing, to order online with free shipping to most places in Canada, you can head over to our website at citruscycles.ca. There you'll find our contact information, so if you have any questions, you want to set up an appointment to come try it here in beautiful Ladysmith on Vancouver Island, you can reach out to us on our website at citruscycles.ca. Now I should mention that I'm not getting paid by anyone to do this video review. Obviously I make a living by selling pedal assist electric bikes, and you'll find on our website and in the store we've got lots of different options. I do video reviews of them all because I want you to find the perfect e-bike for your needs, and one of the ways to do that is by checking out the reviews, and of course ride testing them is really important as well. So in the video review I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of the bike, the things I like, the things that I don't like, the things that I would change, and that's again because I'm not getting paid, so I can say what I want. So what I love about the Easyflow is that this is a much smaller bike. It's got 26-inch wheels. Some people love that because it puts you a little bit closer to the ground, makes the bike feel really manageable. You don't feel like you're really high up and gonna tip over or something like that. The 26-inch wheels and the smaller frame size is really nice. One of the other great things about this bike is that it is a very easy step over. This is very low, very wide, so you can actually get on and off the bike without even having to rotate your foot. You can actually just go straight over. They've even added this little rubberized protection on here to protect the frame when you step on there to get on and off. So really big open area, really easy to get on and off, very comfortable. So if you have some mobility issues, this is ideal because it's super easy to get on and off. But even if you don't have mobility issues, you might love this bike because it's so comfortable, very upright. If you load up the back rack there with your groceries, or you're heading to work and you're bringing stuff with you, it's nice not having to get your leg over the back or lean the bike over. You can just easily step on and off. For commuting, for start and stop traffic, that sort of thing, it's great having that ease of getting on and off. Now this bike is available in two colors. This is the black matte. It's also available in a Legion blue matte. And the cool thing is that it's also available in 3 different sizes, so we can get the size that really will fit you perfectly. So as I mentioned, the bike is actually made in Netherlands. Royal Dutch Gazelle has been making bikes in the same factory for over 125 years. This means you're getting a bike that has European quality, the engineering and attention to detail that you expect from a European bike. But the other interesting thing, 2 other interesting things that I like to mention about European made bikes is that generally in Europe they're held to a higher ecological standard. So they're going to be using techniques such as the painting. They use 4 coats of paint, a really durable clear coat, but it's all environmentally friendly. They're meeting those very high expectations of taking care of the environment. They also are taking care of their employees. So one of the things I like about a European made bike is I know that unlike some of the bikes that are made in Asia, we know that the people working at the factory are paid a fair wage, a living wage, that they're able to have an enjoyable lifestyle, that the factory's taking care of them, and they do a variety of things to improve workers' health and wellness, and it's just, you can feel good about investing in a bike like this because it's supporting a company that is taking care of the environment and taking care of their people. Being a Dutch bike means more than just being made in Netherlands. So the design of the bike, the features that they choose are designed for comfort and convenience and lower maintenance. This is a bike that you want to be able to ride every day regardless of the conditions. You want it to be very utilitarian. You need to use it for transportation, for getting around. It needs to be easy. It needs to be convenient. You don't want to have to put different clothes on because you're riding your bike to work that day. And it also needs to be fun because it's a great way for recreation, for enjoyment, for getting some exercise, getting outside and enjoying the outdoors and exploring. And that kind of embodies the idea of a Dutch bike. And let me explain what I mean by that. So when we talk about comfort, this is super, super easy to get on and off, as I've talked about. And so when you have a bike that is this easy to get on and off, you're going to want to ride it. to make it really comfortable to ride. We have these beautiful swept back handlebars here. We've got nice, comfortable rubberized ergonomic grips so that it's an enjoyable riding experience. We've got a really comfortable Selle Royale saddle here. There's some gel in there, fairly wide. We've got a suspension seat post as well, which is going to help make the ride more enjoyable. If you're going over bumpy roads, you've got potholes, it's going to help reduce the impact of those bumps, which is going to help reduce fatigue. Up front, we also have a suspension fork, which is going to help reduce fatigue. And this is a really interesting suspension fork. So we actually have a little bit of travel in here. And what I like about this is it's very low maintenance, so you don't have to worry about making adjustments, cleaning it, getting it serviced. It also doesn't have a lot of travel, which is kind of good because sometimes you can get on a bike that has too much travel in a city environment or an urban environment. You're riding, you're braking, and you're kind of having that brake dive or going forward and down. You're putting your weight on the handlebars, and it just kind of, this is going to be very smooth. You hardly notice it working, which is good because that means it is working. Very little maintenance as well, which is really nice. Another comfort feature that I'm really very excited about is we've got this tool-free adjustable stem here. Now I'm going to have to move the Shimano display out of the way. And when we build the bike, we have these kind of grommets in here, rubberized shims. We leave it a little bit loose so that you can actually just kind of move that out of the way. There we go. And it's secured onto the display. It's not going to fall, or the display is secured onto the holder. It's not going to fall off. And now all I have to do is with my thumb pull down, open up this latch, and now I can easily adjust not only the angle here so I can get this a little bit further away or a little bit closer to me, but while I'm doing that I can rotate the bars in the clamp here so I can adjust the brake angles to exactly where I want it to be. So it's really cool that just even with one hand I can do that. I can get a little bit lower, adjust the angle bit here, and when I have it where I want it, I just close up the clamp here. There we go. You can hear it click in, and it's really secure. I've tried putting my weight on this, my whole weight while I'm riding to see if there'd be any movement. There isn't, and that's important because a lot of times with an adjustable stem, the problem can be that the bolts will get loose over time, and all of a sudden you're riding along and poof, it drops, and that could be really scary. So it's nice that that is really solid, very easy to adjust, and gives you that very, very comfortable riding position. You're very upright, and you can just really dial that in exactly where you want it to be. So you can see they've really focused on making this bike very comfortable, but they've also thought a lot about how to make it maintenance free. So one of the big things, for example, that you'll often see on a Dutch bike is this chain case here. So the chain is actually completely enclosed all the way at the front, the bottom, and at the back. I'll pop over the other side here. You can see basically this is completely enclosed. The chain is completely protected from the elements. It's also, you are completely protected from the chain. You're not going to have to change your clothes or worry about what you're wearing because you don't have to worry about oil or grease from the chain or dirt because it's completely enclosed. The other great thing about that is from a maintenance perspective, the chain is completely protected. So even though you could be riding on gravel roads and through mud and through rain, the chain is for the most part going to stay very clean. So you don't have to worry about when you get home cleaning and oiling your chain. Now, maybe a few times a year you'll still want to inspect it and oil it and clean it. Very easy to do, but you're not having to do it after every ride. It's going to help the life of the chain. It's going to last a lot longer and certainly reduce the amount of maintenance that you're needing to do on your bike. And that's a great thing because then you're more likely to ride it when you know you don't have to worry about cleaning it when you get home. Now, in order to use this chain case, they can't use a traditional cassette and derailleur on the back because the chain would of course have to jump up and down. With the Easyflow here, they've actually used a Shimano Nexus internally geared hub. This is great because all of the gears are inside that hub. Normally they're on the outside. That means that you have to clean them. You'll need to adjust them from time to time. You've maybe had that happen where you're riding along and it suddenly shifts, or you shift and it doesn't. It's because it's out of adjustment. With the gears all inside here, there's very little adjustment, very little maintenance that needs to be done. You don't have to worry about keeping them clean. Nice and very low maintenance, helps the chain to last longer. It also means you can shift while you stop. So if I come up to the handlebars here, you can see there's 8 speeds. I'm currently in first gear, which makes it really easy to start. But if I don't want to be in first gear, I can go ahead and twist this. There's second, third. I can go all the way to 8. I can shift multiple gears at a time, and even while I'm stopped. So the beautiful thing about that is if you're riding along in your top gear in 8, cruising along really quickly, you have to stop suddenly and you've got a hill ahead. On a regular bike, you're in the wrong gear, you can't shift while you're stopped. With this, go ahead, shift it down to 1 or 2 or 3, wherever you need, and you can start going right away, no problem. As well, you can shift multiple gears at a time, so that's really great. You can really get into the right gear. Now, one of the downsides of an internally geared hub, it's not quite as sporty of a ride because you do have to ease off on your pedaling, almost stop completely in order for the shift to happen. So if I've got a big hill coming up and I'm in 4 and I need it to be in 2, if I pedal really hard and move it to 2, nothing will happen. You'll hear a noise. That's the bike telling you, look, if you could just ease off on your pedaling for a moment, you'll be able to shift in and it'll shift into that gear. You'll feel the effect happen right away. So just keep that in mind. You just need to ease off a little bit on your pedaling and that'll shift right away. But it is brilliant being able to shift while you're stopped and not have to worry about the maintenance aspect. Another nice low maintenance aspect of the bike is their use of hydraulic rim brakes. So this is really interesting. They are hydraulic, so that's really important. That means you're not relying on the strength of your hands to pull a cable to tighten the brake pads against the rim to slow you down. Instead, the hydraulic fluid is doing that for you. So even on the steepest hills here in Ladysmith, I can use one finger on each brake lever if I need to, and it'll bring the bike to a complete stop. So they're very powerful. They are self-adjusting. You don't have to worry about adjusting them. You don't have to worry about the cable stretching or breaking or rusting or any of those kinds of things you'd have to worry about with the cable. So very, very powerful. The nice thing about a hydraulic rim brake is you don't have a disc down here, and what happens sometimes you park your bike at a rack and then the disc gets bent a little bit and then you hear it fluttering as you ride because it's rubbing, because it's out of alignment, and you have to adjust that. With this, you don't have to worry about that. Sometimes people wonder, well, is a rim brake really that effective? Well, from a technical perspective, on a mountain bike, we try to get a really big rotor because the bigger the rotor, the more stopping power. Well, the whole rim is your rotor. So you've got a very, very large rotor. These are, in fact, very effective. I've tested them. You'll come along on the ride test. You'll see, test them in wet conditions, and they work really well. You know, while I'm thinking of it, I should mention that Gazelle hasn't put a lot of quick release components on this bike, so the brakes don't have a quick release. Sometimes you can get the Magura HS22s with a lever so that you can easily take the brakes off to remove your front wheel if you're taking it on and off. This isn't a bike that you'd want to frequently be taking your front wheel on and off, and certainly given how small it is, you wouldn't have to worry about that because it is it doesn't have a quick release on the front fork here, and same on the back. Of course, with the hub, we can't do a quick release, but we do have adjustable tension here, so we can actually back this bolt off and adjust the tension on the chain, which is really important, something you want to be able to do with the hub. So as the chain stretches over time, on a derailleur system, you need to replace it pretty quickly so it doesn't wear out the cassette. We've got a little bit more leeway with this because we can adjust the tension there. But again, it's not a quick release. Fortunately, from a utilitarian perspective, and that's one of the highlights of a Dutch bike, is they really want it to be very utilitarian. You're not going to have to worry about replacing your tire very often because they are actually using the Schwalbe Marathon, which is a highly puncture resistant tire, so it's nice. You're not going to have to worry about that. They do have this reflective striping in here, so it makes you very visible at night. That lights up nice and bright when a light shines on it. These are a 26 by 1.75, like I mentioned, highly puncture resistant from the Schwalbe Marathon, and they are e-bike ready, so that means that they perform well with a heavier bike under higher speeds. It's a thicker tire, it's a heavier tire, but that's okay. If you've got an e-bike, it's heavy because of the battery in the motor already. What we really care about is not having to do a bunch of maintenance, not having to replace the tire quickly, and being a thicker tire, not only more puncture resistant, but it's going to last a lot longer as well. So speaking of utility, this is a bike you want to ride no matter the weather, whether it's getting darker like it is now in the fall, rainy, wet, and so we've got a number of nice features. We've got these nice SKS fenders here, both front and rear, to help keep you dry. There's even a little mud flap on both the front and the back here, which is great. And if you are riding in the dark, we do have lights built in here. Let me turn them on for you so you can see the front and the rear lights are built in, running off of your main battery, which is great, so you don't have to worry about charging them up or bringing them along. They're always there. And what I love about this front light here, nice and bright, we've got a reflector down at the bottom here, but we also have a side cutout here, again keeping you really visible at night between the reflective sidewall and the cutout, both on the front and on the rear. We've got actually this side on both sides here, which is really, really nice to see. Nice and bright, integrated reflector in there as well. And that you can see we've got the wiring running through the frame. And in fact, most of the wiring does run through the frame, so it gives you this really nice, clean look. You're not having to worry about the cables getting snagged on anything. And you know, it's again, just that European attention to detail, really thinking through how you're going to use this bike and making sure that you have everything that you need. And so to that end, obviously the bike comes with a rack. They even include the bungee cord here so that you can strap things on the top if you wish. And of course we've got the rail here for your pannier bag, and you can clip the bag on the side there if you wish to. So very useful that way with having the rack. When you get where you're going, you can secure your bike. There's actually an AXA Defender frame lock here, so this is really quite clever. We've got the key on the other side, and at a moment of panic there, I thought, uh-oh, I forgot to bring the key. Well, actually I didn't, because this is a captured key. The key is always in the lock when it's unlocked. We can't remove it until we lock it, so you don't have to worry about forgetting to bring your key along. So I just turn the key, and on the other side here is a lever. I'll try to do this with one hand, see if I can do that. Pull this lever down, and you can see that's put a steel bar, here we go, through the rear wheel here. So now the bike can't be ridden away because that steel bar prevents the wheel from turning. Now obviously somebody could pick the bike up and steal it, and that would not be good. So there's a little port here on the side that you can put a chain in. We have those chains on our website. Chain goes in the port here, and now you can secure that to a bike rack or a post or anything like that. The cool thing about that chain is that it's relatively light for a chain because it doesn't have a locking mechanism in it. That's because the locking mechanism is already on the bike. So you also don't need an extra key. In fact, the key that we use for locking the lock here, I can take that out now that it's locked, is the same key that we use for the battery. So if I wanted to remove the battery, I just put the key in, turn it, slide the battery off. So handy having just one key for the whole bike, and handy having the key already in there. It's a captured key. Nice knowing that if you want it more secure, you can put a chain in here, and again, you're not bringing another locking mechanism along because the lock's already built in there, and you're not having to worry about another key. Okay, and two other utilitarian features before I get into the Shimano mid-drive system with the display and the controller up here and the battery back there. The bell. This is really cool. This is a twist bell. You just simply twist while you're riding. Beautiful sound, really gets people's attention. You don't have to take your hands off the handlebars to try to reach a bell, because there's a lot of stuff up here, and you just go ahead and twist that. I love that. It's one of my favorite features. It's such a pleasant sound. One of the features that I don't love about the bike though is the kickstand. I mean, obviously it's great having a kickstand, super secure, nice and stable, but I don't really care for the mounting position here. It is in the middle of the bike. The problem with that is if you pedal backwards, moving your bike, that pedal is going to collide with the kickstand here, and it could scratch it, and of course now you can't continue moving the pedals backwards. So what we did, I'll just move the pedals here and show you what I did. So what we did with the kickstand here for use in the store, because we don't want that getting scratched up, is we put a piece of foam under there and then electrical tape around it so that when the pedal does collide with it, it's not going to get scratched up. I would prefer to have a pedal on the rear chainstay here, but it is very stable here, and perhaps they found that on the rear, because of the geometry of the bike, that it wasn't as stable. It is very, very stable there. Okay, so as I've mentioned, this bike is powered by the Shimano Steps mid-drive. This is the E6100. What I like about a mid-drive motor is that your weight is nice and low, centered on the bike, so it's not in the rear like if we had a motor in the rear tire. The other nice thing about a mid-drive is that because it is turning the chain rather than the wheel, it feels much more natural. Your bike is normally propelled by you pedaling and turning the chain, and so with the mid-drive motor, it's helping you do that. It just feels very smooth, very responsive. It has a torque sensor, which is really important. It senses how hard you're pedaling and matches the power accordingly. So if you're riding on difficult terrain or a little bit of a trail and you just need a little bit of power, not a lot, when you pedal lightly, it's going to give you just a little bit. It's not going to all of a sudden give you a surge of power, which can happen when you have a bike with a rear hub motor and a cadence sensor. So really very smooth, very natural. The other big thing about having the motor help you turn the chain is that when you change gears with this internally geared hub, now the motor, because it's turning the chain, is also in an easier gear. That makes climbing hills much easier because you choose an easy gear on the gearing system, on your transmission, so to speak, and now the motor is also in an easier gear. Mid-drive motors also have a fair bit of torque. The E6100 actually has 60 Newton meters of torque, but I believe that Gazelle has dialed that down a little bit in order not to cause too much stress on the internally geared hub. As you'll see in the ride test, you actually get lots of power. I had no problems climbing hills with the E6100. Another great thing about a mid-drive motor, especially this one from Shimano, these are very reliable. The nice thing about a brand like Shimano is really any bike shop in the world deals with Shimano, can help you if you do have questions or run into problems, need service or warranty. It's really easy to get from Shimano, and that's kind of an important thing. A lot of times, again, this is a bike that you could use as a car replacement, right? This could be your way of getting around. This, can really make a big difference in your life. It's so much fun riding a bike instead of driving a car. It's going to save you money, just improve your health, but it needs to be reliable. You need to make sure that every day that this is going to be available for you, and that's the nice thing about dealing with a company like Shimano, is it is a very reliable system. So the kickstand, as I mentioned, wasn't one of my favorite things about the bike. Oh, while I'm looking at the kickstand, I should mention I do like the pedals. Often I don't like the pedals on a bike, but these are nice because they've got some rubberized texture here to help keep your foot from sliding in the rain. Fairly wide, actually. A lot of times we see on a bike like this a little pedal. It's nice having a wider pedal. You can just kind of put your foot where you need to. If you ride in a lot of really rainy, wet conditions, you could change these out to something with pins. Now, another thing that I don't love about the bike, but I think it's more in my head than anything. Again, on the ride test, you'll see that. They're using a rack mount battery here. So this is a Shimano rack mount battery. It's a 400 watt hour battery, which is actually going to give you really good range with this E6100 because it's a very efficient motor. It's the other nice thing about a mid-drive motor is they are more efficient than a hub motor, again, because of the gearing there. So this battery you can remove, as I showed you earlier. Put the key in there, it slides off. If you prefer not to remove it, you can charge it on the bike if you wish, and that's one of the things that I don't love about the this Shimano rack mount battery is it actually has two different charging ports. So when you're charging it on the bike, really easy to do. You just open up that flap there, plug the charger in, you're good to go. If you remove the battery from the bike to charge it, you actually need a different charger plug or end. So the bike actually comes with a kind of a dongle. It's a little square thing that takes that smaller plug and makes it bigger to plug into the battery. So you don't want to lose that. Keep that somewhere safe. Typically, I don't like having the battery on the rear rack. I prefer it somewhere lower because that's going to get the center of gravity of the bike down lower. Now, I have to admit, on the ride test, I didn't actually notice the battery being up here negatively impacting on the handling of the bike. So I guess I should stop complaining about it, because the advantage of having the battery up here is now it's not cluttering up the space in the front here. Makes it really easy to get on and off. Nice, easy, open area for getting on and off. So I think it makes sense to put the battery there to allow you to get on and off more easily. Now, if that's a concern for you because you want to go on really challenging trails with this bike and you're concerned that that could impact on the handling, again, in my ride test, I couldn't notice it, then maybe look at the Arroyo. It has a Bosch mid-drive instead. It's also from Gazelle, and they've put the battery into the down tube here. But check out the video of that. You'll notice that this space just isn't as big on the Arroyo because of the battery placement. But it is a nice option to consider as well. So as much as I like to complain about the battery, I don't know that it's fair to, because it hasn't made a big impact. You can still put your bags and everything on there. Now, I do like the Shimano display. It's nice and big, really easy to read. It is removable. There's a little latch here you can push on and take that off and bring it with you if you wish. And that's a good thing to do, because now the bike can't be turned on without that display. The other great thing about this Shimano display is it is Bluetooth enabled, so you can actually pair two apps right now with it. I imagine that there'll be more in the future. And with those apps, you can do two different things. One of the apps, you can actually display all of the information that we'd normally see here on your phone, so you can customize it, choose what you see, change the color and the size of it and that sort of thing. The other thing that you can do is you can change all of your settings, and you can actually change the motor from a kind of comfort-oriented configuration to something that's a little bit more sporty. So you can go back and forth and change that as you wish. Now, you certainly don't have to use a smartphone with the bike. It works just fine without it, and in fact you can control everything through the display here. Let me walk you through that. You can see the time in the top left hand corner here, the fact that our lights are on, and their lights are controlled by the light button here. So if I press that, the light is off, press and hold it, the light comes back on. Cool thing is, if you turn the bike off, turn it back on, and your lights were on when you turned the bike off, the lights will go off, but when you turn it back on, the lights will go back on. So that's a nice feature. There's our battery level and the current speed, nice and big, really easy to read. The current level of assistance is off. This is always going to say manual. This bike doesn't have electronic shifting, so it can't automatically shift for you. You still have to manually control that. So it'd be nice if that would just disappear, but it's always going to say manual. And down here we can cycle through different information. So right now we're looking at our total odometer on the bike, so that's the total distance. And there's two ways of adjusting, cycling through the information on the bottom here. We can either press the black button, and that's going to allow us to cycle through. But if you're riding, you don't want to take your hands off the button here. So there's a middle button on the remote here that you can use to cycle through. We also have up and down buttons, very tactile. There's a bit of a clickiness to them, so you know that you've clicked. That's going to move you up to eco, normal, and high. So there's 3 levels of assistance plus off. High, of course, gives you the most power. Normal is kind of a middle, and eco gives you tremendous range. And of course you can ride it off. With the assistance off, rides just like a regular bike, and your lights and your trip computer are still working. So now I'll cycle through the information at the bottom using the button here. You can see the odometer. Next is the range. Now right now the assistance is off, so I can go as long as I want. I'll move the assistance up to eco. It's saying now I've got 143 kilometers. On normal, 100 kilometers, and on high, 71 kilometers. Now, instead of cycling through all of that by using the up and down to change the levels of assistance, the next screen is actually going to show me all 3 at once, which is kind of cool. So if you know how far you've gone, how much further you've got to go, you can kind of judge, hey, if I want to, kind of relax and just ride in high all the way home, can I do that, or should I go down to normal or to eco? Your trip time, your average speed, your maximum speed, and this is really interesting. This is your cadence. This is something probably you'd use more from a fitness perspective, is to see how quickly your legs are moving. And there's our trip distance. Now, on our trip distance screen here, if I want to reset that, I could go into the menuing system, or if I press and hold the select button, it's going to flash, and if I press it again, it resets it. So that's pretty cool. But if I do want to go into the programming menu, I can press and hold the plus and minus at the same time. Now I'm into my settings here. I just use the up and down to cycle through. The first thing I do when I set up these bikes is I go down to the beep here, and I turn that off because it drives me crazy. But if you prefer, you can have it beep at you every time you press the button. You can change the units, the language, the backlight, all sorts of things in here. And we'll just go back to the exit. Now, some of those settings don't do anything. Shimano's left all the settings for all of the bikes, so if you do have electronic shifting, there's some options in there. This bike doesn't have electronic shifting, so we don't have to worry about that. Alright, well, hopefully I've remembered everything with the Gazelle Easyflow here. As you can see, super easy to get on and off. Lots of power for the hills. Internally geared hub means there's very little maintenance. That chain guard is fantastic. I love the adjustable stem. The lights, there's just so much to love about this bike, and actually really affordable, especially for a European-made bike with all of those benefits. So if you want to try it out, head over to our website at citruscycles.ca. There you'll find the detailed specs, pricing, our contact info, so you can schedule an appointment, come try it out, and of course I'm going to take you on a ride test as well. So I'm riding the small size of the Gazelle Easyflow. It's a little bit small for me, but you know what? It's nice that it's available in 3 sizes, and the small size, it's fantastic for shorter riders because you've got that 26-inch wheel, which helps get you a little bit closer to the ground. The bike doesn't feel as cumbersome or as tall, and with this small size, it actually, you know, you've got the adjustable angle on the stem here, tool-free, really easy to adjust, but you can actually get it really close. So if you've got a, maybe not shorter, and that's the thing sometimes with sizing bikes, especially step-throughs, it's nice knowing that, look, if you have a shorter torso and shorter arms, this bike, you can really adjust it so you feel really, really comfortable on it. Or if you've got shorter legs, again, really easy to make the adjustments that we need. So I'm finding, you know, it's very upright, obviously. Nice having that comfortable upright riding position. Easy to see and be seen. And I've come to a complete stop here at the stop sign. I didn't downshift before I stopped. No problem with this internally geared hub here. I'm just going to put it down to 2 and I can get going. And one of the nice things about a mid-drive motor like the Shimano Steps that's on here is you get the power as soon as you put force in the pedals. So to get started from the stop sign there, you don't need a throttle or anything like that. I start pedaling, I get the assistance right away. It is wet, we've had some rain here, so you will hear the brakes a little bit until they dry out, but it's nice to be able to demonstrate that hydraulic disc brakes work just fine in wet conditions. All right, a bit of a hill here, so I'm going to put it up to high for the hill, and I'll need to shift to an easier gear. And you'll notice, I don't know if you can hear that, there's a little bit of ticking because the gears, although I can turn the shifter, they won't actually shift if I'm pedaling really hard until I very briefly ease up on the pedaling. I'll demonstrate that again. I'm pedaling really hard, I shift to an easier gear, nothing happens. Very briefly ease off the pedaling and it shifts right away. Wow, there's a lot of power. I was on high there and whew, cruising along really well. This is that Shimano Steps E6100. I did hear it a little bit on that hill, but not too badly at all. Now I'm into some rougher pavement here. Lots of bumps, broken pavement. I'll get into some gravel. When I was coming down that hill, I actually took my hands off the handlebars. I've done that a couple of times now. Don't do that at home. It's not a good idea. You should always have your hands on the handlebars. But I thought for sure this bike would have a speed wobble. And a speed wobble is what happens when you take your hands off the handlebars at certain speeds. The bike just isn't laterally stiff enough because it's a step through, and so it'll have that kind of vibration. There's an easy fix for it. Well, you keep your hands on the handlebars. But surprisingly, I haven't been able to get any speed wobble. I'm really impressed. That means that the bike is going to handle really well. It's going to handle corners and turns at higher speeds. You're not going to have to worry about stability. So that's impressive. So speaking of stability, the bumps back there, I'm heading into some more up here. I'm actually really impressed with this suspension fork that's integrated there. It's actually performing quite well. Suspension seat post definitely helps as well. Now this is pretty rough, and if you are always riding on rough stuff like this, maybe upgrade that suspension seat post to a thud buster or a connect. But as it is, it's very impressive. I hear a little bit of rattling from the battery, I think, in the back there. All right, I'm going to try out the brakes. Oh wow, that was a good stop, nice and quick. Didn't lock anything up. I've got loose gravel on the side here and wet leaves. So there, I was able to lock up that rear wheel a little bit. Now these brakes are doing really, really well. Let me do a little bit of swerving in the loose stuff here. Again, it's remarkable at how well that handles, you know, given the size, 26-inch wheels, the smaller frame, the step-through. It's actually doing really, really well. I'm surprised. And let's do a little bit of a trail here as well. Again, it's not designed for hardcore trail riding, but it works pretty well on light trails. it's nice having such a responsive motor when you are on trails. So if I just pedal lightly, I'm going to get a little bit of assistance from the motor, which is what I'm expecting. And if I really pedal hard, boom, I get lots of power. And so that's important because you don't want to suddenly get a surge of power when you're not expecting it. Riding on wet grass here. These are, not a super wide tire, obviously not super narrow either. They're actually doing really well on this kind of wet grass. I don't feel unstable or unsafe at all. Let's try a couple of hills next. Again, having that internally geared hub is great. You can go ahead and shift while you're stopped. You can also shift multiple gears at once, so I can go all the way to 8 from 5 just like that. What I haven't noticed, I've heard a little bit of noise from the battery every now and then over big bumps, and I think it's the battery, but I'm not sure. I haven't noticed that it, a lot of times I'll notice on a bike with the battery on the rear rack that it negatively impacts on the handling, that it, shifts the center of gravity up higher, and I'm really not noticing that with the Easyflow here. Okay, got a bit of a hill, I put it up into high. No problem, I'm in 2, I probably don't need to be in 2, I'll go to 3. Again, I have to ease off a little bit on the pedaling for it to shift into 3. I'm going to go through a tunnel, hopefully I don't lose the GPS when I come out the other side. Bottom right hand corner of the screen should show you the gradient of the hill. It's actually quite a steep hill, and so it'll be interesting to see with the Shimano E6100 how well it performs on the hill. Love having that bell built right into the grip there. I don't have to take my hands off. Got the light built in, so it's easy to see in the dark through the tunnel there. Now that I've got it on high, preparing for the hill, I can hear the motor whining a little bit. It's not particularly loud, and you probably won't notice it unless you're listening for it. Now the E6100 is capable of, I believe, 60 Newton meters of torque, but I believe Gazelle has tweaked that down a little bit because the Shimano hub doesn't like to operate at really high torque, so they kind of match that up. So we'll see on the hill how well it does. Again, that gradient is probably in the right hand corner, but the speed won't be accurate. So I'm doing about 11 kilometers an hour right now. It probably says quite a bit lower than that because it's not actually measuring my ground speed on the ground, it's measuring the horizontal speed. Down to about 9 kilometers an hour. I'm in my easiest gear. I'm not actually having to push that hard. I'm happy with the cadence. I'm not pushing too hard. I'm not spinning too slow. In fact, now I'm almost 10 kilometers an hour and I don't need to be in first gear, so that's actually really impressive. I'm very happy with the hill climbing capabilities there. Let me start on the incline on the hill, see if I can get the power right away. Oh yeah, no problem. As soon as put force on the pedals, you get that assistance from the motor. That gearing is easy enough. I can definitely get into an easy enough gear to get up that hill. Nice thing about a step through is when you do come to a stop, it's really very easy to just slide off the saddle instead of trying to tiptoe and balance on the saddle. That way you can get your saddle up nice and high so you get a full leg extension. You're not getting sore knees, but you also don't feel unsafe because you know at any time you can just slide off the saddle, stand flat-footed. I do like the riding position because I am very upright, very comfortable. Can easily watch for cars backing out of parking spots here. That was a good opportunity to check the brakes. I was doing about 30 going down the hill there, and no problem with the brakes at all. I'm really happy with them. The nice thing about the hydraulic rim brakes, aside from really not needing any sort of maintenance or adjustments, is they're not as grabby. So I can grab both the brake levers. I don't recommend it, but I can grab both the brake levers really hard, pull them right in, and I'm not going to be thrown from my bike. So you have a really strong headwind right now. I'm going to put it up onto high. And it's great. I'm really impressed with the Shimano Steps E6100. Lots of power to keep going, right into a really strong headwind, 26 kilometers an hour, no problem. It's nice having that. So, it's not windy, not in a hurry. Drop it down to Eco. You're going to get tremendous battery life on Eco with this very efficient motor. And then when you need the power, you can put it on normal and put it on high, and you get exactly what you need. Well, hopefully this video has been helpful. It gives you an idea of what you can do with the bike. If you have any questions, you can head over to our website at citruscycles.ca.